I, Shwetha Prabhu, Associate Editor, would like to welcome you all to the 8th webinar of the webinar series hosted by JISHA. Today's webinar is titled Ethical Considerations in Research. And we have with us Dr. Neelam Anupama Toppo, Professor, Department of Community Medicine, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose Medical College, Jabalpur, as a resource person for today's webinar. A brief introduction to ma'am's career. She has been in this field she's in this college for many years, and she has mentored for fellows of Sochara, awarded by WHO for excellence in primary healthcare and education for promotion of capacity of primary healthcare personnel. She has been awarded a 2-year fellowship for Foundation for Advancement of International Medical Education and Research, and she has received Dr. S. Radhakrishnan National Teachers Award, and she has various best paper awards and fellows in medical education, and been awarded the Mittal Oration Award in 2016. And ma'am has a lot of research papers published in various reputed journals. I think we will be, it's a privilege to hear from you, ma'am, today. We would like to extend a warm welcome to you, ma'am. A small request to the participants. You need to type in your queries in the chat box, which will be answered at the end of the webinar. So I wish everyone a fruitful learning session.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Hello. Am I audible?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for
start.
inviting me to take these sessions on ethics and its consideration in research. I am grateful to Dr. Pinki Singh, who she has invited me to speak on this topic, and I would like to share about this topic, and I believe this will be a fruitful session for every one of us. So this will be a great learning for every one of us. So let me start with the topic. The learning objective for this session, after this session, the participants will be able to understand what is actually ethics, and will be understand why ethical foundation is crucial in the research, and would be able to describe how evidence is created for this ethics and its practices. Will be able to assess the quality of published research in the future, and understand the evaluation of various guidance document has greatly improved the practice of ethics in biomedical research. So that these are our learning objective. So let me introduce about the topic, what is actually ethics. Ethics is the study of morality, careful reflection on and just a minute. Yeah, it is a careful reflection on and analysis of moral decision and behavior. So it is very important for any research, like how we are looking on the on our research. It is related with the morality, careful reflection on our research topic and the research process about the moral decision and the behavior. It involves the exploring questions about what is right or wrong, good or bad, what actions are morally acceptable. So that need to be thought of. We need to ask questions our own self and explore about right or wrong, good or bad, all the actions we are taking in our research implementation process, whether it is morally acceptable or not. Ethical principles help people make informed and morally sound decisions. Ethical considerations are vital to ensure that research is conducted responsibly and respects the rights and dignity of individuals and communities, contributes positively to the public health outcomes, to put the patient and participants first. That is the main principle of in the research. This should always be kept in mind while we are planning any kind of the research, or we are doing any kind of a research. So why ethical foundation is crucial for health research? It is very important to understand why this foundation is important and why everyone talks about the ethical consideration in the research, because it is a fundamental things in the research practices. Any research involving the human participant should follow international standard of ethics. That is very crucial. Every researcher who is planning any kind of researcher must follow the international standard of ethics. Indian national standards are there, which is not less exacting, and the Indian ethical guidance are on par with the international ethical guidelines, and we follow this in Indian national standards guidelines as for any kind of the Indian research. Ethics review is also expected in situation involving no risk when available data are used, or minimum risk such as when only questions are asked, no samples or specimens are collected. So we need to remember, it is not only the review, ethical review is required for where the risk is involved, but when we are using the available data for our research in that kind also, and there is the minimal risk for the participants. In that case also, we have to go for the ethical review. That is the important things, we should do it. So evaluation of the various guidance documents has greatly improved the practice of ethics in biomedical research. So what are these various guidance document which help us to practice the ethics in our research implementation? So the oldest one is in 1947, the Nuremberg Code came with the which includes the initiated discussion on rational and justification of the research risk benefit analysis. It is very important key, like whatever the research you are doing, that there must be some kind of the rational and justification, that the risk benefit analysis means the benefit is more compared to the risk. So that need to be understand, and that need to be like find out how it is there. And the competence of the investigators is again very important, and the voluntary consent in the research, these are the component in the Nuremberg Code. Now in 1964, the Helsinki Declaration came, and after that many revisions were made in 1983, 1989, 1996, 2000, 2008 and 2013. And it includes the commitment to individual rights to make informed decision, investigators' duties, research participants' welfare, and vulnerability, because these all components are very, very important in any kind of the research. And in 1978 to 1979, the Belmont report came, which described the basic ethics principle of autonomy, justice, and beneficence, emphasize informed consent and the review by ethics committee. These all are the basic principles in the ethics, like autonomy, justice, beneficence, and so that emphasis was given in the Belmont report. And 1992, 1993, the SIOMS guidelines came. It is the Council for International Organization, Medical Science, and WHO. It's revised in 2002, which emphasized on reporting of adverse drug reactions and safety of research participants, benefit risk balance, need, and principles of pharmacovigilance. So these were the more the components where pharmacovigilance was given the stress under these guidelines. And in 1996, ICS is the International International Council on sorry, just a minute. International yes. So this talked about the good clinical practices, right? So these are the different codes, and different reports generated, and that's talked about the different aspects of the ethics. So how this came, that need to be understood. Now, then after that, we have the Indian guidelines also, which talked about the research on the human participation, and it was developed by the ICMR. And you all, we all can go in the links given here in the ICMR site. If you visit, you can find out the guidelines for ICMR ethical ethics in the research part. So you can go through the detailed document, and we will discuss this later on also. What are the various components and what are the emphasis was given in that. So how this came actually, na? These all codes and different reports and these documents generated based on the certain experience of the past. So there was the one. So I would like to share a few kind of the research which led towards these all documents. So there was the one research that was in the Tuskegee syphilis study. And Tuskegee was is in the place of USA, where it was conducted in 1932 to the 72. The long time this study was done in the United States Public Health Service, through the Public Health Services, where patients were recruited with the syphilis and followed up for the disease prospective cohort study. So they conducted the cohort study. They wanted to study the natural history of the syphilis. That was their purpose. And for that, they selected the patients with the syphilis, and they recruited the case of around 400 cases and 200 from the control group. And what they did, the participants were not informed about the true nature of this study. The participants were not informed that they are studying about the natural history of disease. So they are not going to receive any kind of a treatment. Rather, they will be just the follow-up for the long time to see what is the natural history of the syphilis. And so that was the condition. So participants were not informed about the detail of the study. And intentionally, the researcher allowed to spread of the disease, because those patients were not counseled, those patients were not given the treatment, though the penicillin was available during that time. So this was the research they conducted, and no informed consent was taken from the participants. And so this was the improper ethical oversight. So due to this, many patients died due to the syphilis. Many people became orphan. Many children became orphan, and the partners died, and widows were there. So these all the huge impact on the that community. Was found out. So because of that, the penalty was given to the researchers and researchers. So they had to pay the huge amount of money to the widows or the orphan children, all the people who died due to this disease. So, and later on in 1997, President Bill Clinton issued a formal apology to the survivors and their families too. So this was the outcome of the such kind of the studies, where there was no ethical principles were followed, neither for the treatment part, nor they have taken any consent, and autonomies was breached. So these were the things in this study. Another study I would like to share about the Nazi experiments during the World War II. So what happened during the World War II? The unethical medical experimentation was done, and the German physicians, they were conducted the medical experiments on the camps prisoners without their consent and with dire consequences. Nothing was shared with them, and simply because the prisoners were in the camp, so they did their study. In 1946, an American military tribunal proceeding resulted in the criminal prosecutions of 23 of these German physicians for their willing participation in war crimes and crimes against humanity. So it was considered as a during the time of the war, this was the criminal activity, as considered as a criminal activity against the humanity. This prosecution led to the development of the Nuremberg Code in 1948, which was the first international document to promote the protection of human subjects in research. So you can see how due to the wrong practices in the research of the past, these all ethical things came up and different codes and different reports were generated, and it was made the researcher to practice such ethical principles and ethical practices while doing any kind of research. And another study was the Havasupai diabetes project. In that, what happened? The Havasupai tribal is a federal recognized Indian tribe residing in the Grand Canyon of the northwestern Arizona. In 1989, this Arizona State University researcher John Martin partnered with the Havasupai tribal members to investigate the epidemic of diabetes mellitus, which was having a devastating effect on the health and well-being of the tribe. The goals of the partnership were to provide education on nutrition and the physiology, facilitate the testing of diabetes or diabetes risk, and to make them genetic testing available to identify potential genetic correlates of the disease among the tribal members. The Professor Martin sought the help of human genetics, Professor Teresa Marco, to assist with the genetic testing for the diabetic projects. So what happened here? The Marco saw, and this project was considered as an opportunity by Professor Marco, who saw the opportunity to tie in her own research interest that was on the schizophrenia to the Havasupai project. So, as she was the partner with the John Martin, and she utilized this community and the opportunity for her the research on the schizophrenia, as she was interested on the schizophrenia. Even she got all the fund and all regarding her project, and she did this study on the schizophrenia. So later what happened? When one student from the Arizona State University, when John Martin was presenting her research paper about this, he was the part of that discussion, and in that meeting he was present. When he found that this study was done without taking the consent of the tribal group of people, and he belongs to that tribal group. So he raised the issue and he filed the case, and he won the case, and all penalty was given to John Martin and Marco. And later on, whatever the related publications and other things, the research related to this particular population was banned, and they could not publish the papers or something like that later on after the court decision. So this is the way how the wrong things was done against the humanity or the people's autonomy, their concerns, and it was the side and their effects on their health and other aspect was there. Because of that, these all the ethical principles came into the existence, and we are talking of this all ethics in the research these days. So the basic ethical principles. Basic ethical principles are these four things we must never forget. We must always remember. This is the autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and the justice. So autonomy, it is the participant should have the right to make decision about their participation freely without external pressure or influence. Respect the participants' rights, need, and views. Very, very important. We cannot force anyone to take part in our study. We cannot influence by giving them money or on some kind of the benefits and all. They have to take their decision freely without any pressure. So that is the important thing, the autonomy to be respected for any study participants. Beneficence, we have to think of the beneficiary. We always have to do good for the participants who are involved, we are involving in the study. So we have always tried to do good. Researchers must maximize benefit and minimize the harm to the participants. That is very important, crucial. We have to find out whatever the research we are planning for our student, for our participants, we need to find out whether it is good for them or not. And we have to see it should overweigh on the risk. So that we should minimize the risk. So that is the beneficence. Non-maleficence, It is do not harm. We should not do any harm to our study participants. That should be the principle in ethics. Research protocol should be designed to minimize any potential harm or discomfort. We have to think always, we have to ask always whether our research study or research, any kind of the interventions or any kind of the procedures, who is going to discomfort them or going to do harm, should not be considered for the any research studies. So this is the non-maleficence. Then the justice, very important, another very important principle of the ethics. It is the importance of fairness, equity, and protection of vulnerable population in all aspects of research, from participant selection to distribution of the benefits. In a nutshell, making sure that everyone is treated with the respect and fairness. So that is the justice. So these all things to be things should involve in our study or the research projects. Evaluation of the national ethical guidelines. What are these things? ICMR published the first ethical guideline for biomedical research on the human participant in 1980. Later on, ethical guidelines for biomedical research on human subjects came into 2000 revision 1, and the next revision was done in 2006. This was the ethical guideline for biomedical research on human participants, and the current and the recent guideline is came in 2017, National Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical and the Health Research Involving Human Participants. So these are the national guidelines available to us. We can refer this while we are planning any kind of the research or we are thinking to plan the research. So ICMR National Guidelines of 2017 must be referred for our consideration. So what are the different scope and purpose for this in our Indian guidelines? That apply to all biomedical and the health research involving human participants in India. They aim to ensure the ethical conduct of research, protect participants' right and well-being, and maintain the integrity of the research process. So that is the scope and purpose. The key aspects of these guidelines included are essentiality. Research studies should only be conducted if there is a legitimate and compelling reason to do so, and conduct only if the research question cannot be answered through other means that do not involve human participant. So essentiality must be checked out, whether the research question will be asked only through involving the human participants. Then only we can take it as this is the essential thing, or we should and we are compelled to do this research to get our answer of the research question. We can say, yes, this is essential and it is going to help the larger community as well the participants. In that way, we can check it the essentiality. Informed consent is very, very important, and we all, if we are the researchers, so we know we take the informed consent, because researcher must obtain voluntary and informed consent explained in simple vernacular language and understood all aspects of the study from participants or their legally authorized representatives. So this is very important, important things. Professional competence is again important as per the national guideline. What is that? Ensuring that researchers and all professionals involved in the research process the necessary qualifications, skill, knowledge, and experts to conduct ethical and the high quality research will be ensured. So professional competencies of researcher is very important. When you apply for any kind of the research projects or you are applying for the funding, you have to give your biodata regarding what competence, whether you are competent enough to do such kind of the research or not. So that is the important aspect. You have to produce, give the professional competency, your curriculum, so your curricular witty. So the committee, the institutional ethical board or review board can see whether you are competent or not. So that need to be seen. And accountability and transparencies in the research is very important. Underscores the responsibility of all individuals and entities involved in research, including the researchers, IEC members, institutions, sponsors, and regulatory bodies. Everyone has the accountability and transparency. It should be all across shared and must be understood, and it must be clear everyone is following the ethical principles and doing so as it is required. Clear and open communication with the research participants, IEC, institutions, regulatory bodies, and the public is important. Transparent reporting of the research methods, procedures, results, and publications of the true findings is crucial for ensuring that research is trustworthy and credible. So these all are the important aspects regarding the accountability and the transparency. Maximization of the public interest and the distributive justice. Research serves the greater good of society and promotes equitable access to the benefits of the research. It is very, very important, and ensuring that the benefits and burdens of the research are distributed fairly and equitably among the individuals and the communities. So the research outcome of any research is always, it should be beneficial to the public interest. It should be beneficial to the community or the group of target community on whom the research was done. So this is very important. So we need to try always the maximization of our research findings and outcome. So institutional arrangements, organizational structures and processes in place by institutions and authorities to ensure the ethical conduct of the research. Institutional review boards should be there, or ethics committee should be there in the institutions, and conflict of interest policy should be there with the institutions or with the institutional review boards. So it will be ensured that every arrangements are available, and it is there in the institution, so this research can be allowed to do and the security and security of all the principles of all the ethics can be practiced. Ethical review process. The guidelines detail the ethical review process, including the submission of the research proposal, review criteria and procedures for the decision making. We will discuss this a little later. The IRB and the IC assesses the ethical, scientific, and regulatory aspects of the research. So these all three are assessed by the institutional review boards regarding the ethical aspect, regarding the scientific aspect, regarding the regulatory aspect. So all aspect been reviewed by the institutional review board. Public domain related to the principles of transparencies and the ethical responsibility to share the research outcome for the benefit of the society and the broader scientific community. The purpose of any research, because we through the research we create the evidences. So evidences, and it's so that all the results of the research must be published in the public domain. So the scientific scientific community, it will be beneficial as well to the participants, or people itself will be benefited by knowing the outcome of the research, and what are they can understand their own problems also. So it is very important that must be published in the public domain. Totality of the responsibility, if underscore the idea that ensuring the ethical conduct of the research is a shared responsibility that involves various individuals, institutions, and entities. So it is it will be ensured that we are following the principles of ethics. So this all things are very, very important. Compliance. Another aspect is a compliance. Refer to the requirements that all individuals, institutions, and entities involved in the research must adhere to ethical principles, regulations, and guidelines governing research involving human participants. So it is the mandatory aspect, how the researcher will compliant to all these guidelines. है ना? A vulnerable population, special protections are outlined for vulnerable populations, including children, pregnant women, prisoners, and those with the cognitive impairment. So there are the guidelines for the vulnerable population, what can be done. So you can refer those guidelines. So and you can consider those things. So vulnerable population, as you people are also working on the special group of people, so it is very important for you all. Compensation and the reimbursement, participants may be compensated for their time and inconvenience, but this should not be coercive. So this can be included if their wages are lost in a day, if they are spending time with you, they are coming for the research purpose, and their travel time and other things. So that must be always compensated, and reimbursement can be done for them. Publication and reporting, researcher must adhere to the ethical publication practices and report research findings transparently, regardless of whether the results are positive or negative. It is again very important, the publication ethics that also need to be followed. These all guidelines are available in the ICMR site. You can go through it and you can see, and wherever you are publishing a paper, there are the ethical principles for publications also are there, like how that should be ethical things are involved in publication that need to be followed. Then what is informed consent? As we have been talking in the previous slides, informed consent is very important. And in the Belmont reports, it was the one things involved and Helsinki documents also talked about the informed consent. Informed consent is the process of informing the potential participants about the propose research in a systematic manner and empower them to take an informed decision to participate in research study. Understand study procedures and the risk and benefits both. And it is very important, they must know about the procedures, risk and benefits, get all question and concern answered. If they raise any question, it is the researcher responsibility to clear those doubts and questions and their concerns about any kind of the issues. Take a learned and informed decision to or not to participate. So it is totally autonomy of the participants whether they will take or not take the participant after understanding of the procedures, after understanding of the risk and benefit of the research study. So and if whether they have cleared their doubts or not, so based on that they can take the informed decision to participate or not to participate. This process can be repeated several times during the research study if necessary. Although group consent is desirable, example the tribal studies जो हमने discuss किया था कि this could be taken the group consent, but the individual consent cannot be replaced. It is very, very important. Huh? Individual consent as well the group consent both should be taken. If you are saying there is a homogeneous group and you have to take the consent in the group, you can take it, but you should also take the individual consent also. So how the informed consent looks like, you can see it here. If you'll see here, that in the top you should write the project name and the agency at the top, and after that you should have an appeal ki like you are greeting to the participant, or you are appealing to them to participate in the research study in the simple, easy to understand and local language. That is very important, because you need to see first who are your participants, what language they use, what is the level of understanding, whether they are the literate group or illiterate group. Based on that, you can develop your informed consent document, and in that everything should be written. Like in the body of the text, you should you should write the research description. You should write about the risk involved in the study. You should share about the benefits, how it is going to benefits to the people suffering with such kind of the things. Any alternatives if some risk happens, so what can be done, and confidentiality, that key during the whole course of the studies and later on the confidentiality will be maintained, and compensation, if any risk happens, there is the compensations, if and context detail key during the time of any kind of emergency or the risk, to whom they will contact voluntarily. You must tell key it is the voluntary, it is not the forceful thing. You can take decision, you can leave the study during any time, or any phase of the study. Participation and withdrawal can be talked about. So this all information must be given to the participants. And lastly, signature of the participant and witness should be taken. And that witness, very important thing to be remembered, witness not be a part of the study team. The witness should be any other person who is witnessing that the informed consent was taken, and every aspect of the study been informed to the participant, and participant has been included based on the informed details of the projects, and he is willing to participate, and that's why the witness is signing the consent form. So this is the things to be how to develop the consent form and how it should be go about. So stakeholders in the informed, who are the stakeholders in the informed consent process? Researcher and the institutions. Information, because why researchers and institution? Because informations, discussion and explanations, comprehensions and it's lead to the voluntary decision. So it all need to be discussed. And पहले तो आपके institution में with the institutional review board के सामने researcher will present everything. He will give the information to the boards. He will, and the discussion and explanation will happen. If the institutional review board members will be convinced that this research should go on, and they will give the permission. So the decision will be taken about the research, and participants are the stakeholders, as they have been informed about the whole process, benefits, risk and compensation and any other things, alternatives, any things. This all be informed, and participants take free and independent consent is given without coercion or the force. So that's why participant is the key stakeholders in the informed consent process. And then the sponsors, monitors, and the regulators. If your project been sponsored by someone, so sponsor and who are the monitors who will be monitoring the research projects, or the regulators are the important stakeholders in the informed consent form process. Assess fairness of the concerning procedures, verify consent documentation of the research participants. Anaki, it has been taken, and in according to the process, it has been taken, and it is okay. So like that way, these are the stakeholders in the informed consent. The issues related to the informed consent. Whom does informed consent benefit? It is the both side, dual side. Now, it is research participants will get benefit, as well the investigator also. If we have seen the old example of the studies where the informed consent was not taken, so they turned into the courts, and the penalties was enforced to them. So investigator will be on the safer side when he will take the informed consent. Researcher participants will be benefited. They have known all the things, and if there is any kind of the distraction and deviation from the process, they can raise their voice. So both study participants and investigators get benefit in the due to the informed consent. Is the research procedure adequately explained in this IC form? It is important aspect. Regarding the language, what language being used in the informed consent, whether it was the simple language, the clarity was there about all the procedures, risk and benefits. So these all need it will be observed. It will be review board can see these all things. Translations and back translation certifications of the translation is important. If you have developed in your language in the English, and you need to translate into the local language, this had been done. and that has been certified also ki the language being translated, local language is certified that this is the correct translation is there. So that is the important thing. That's why it is important as well. Test of understanding. Test of understanding after the explanations to the participants about the whole procedures and everything. There is it is the good practice if you will do the test of understanding whether your participants have understood the procedures, they have understood the risk involved in the study, they understood the benefits involved in that, then only they are taking the decision ki I want to participate in the study or not. Like the syphilis study, what the researcher told to the people, ki we will draw the blood, but that blood to just see the bad, ki there any bad things are there or not. The word they use the bad things, so, so it was not, they didn't inform about the things, they didn't tell about the process, they didn't tell about the objective of the study, they didn't say ki why they are drawing the blood, so these all things are important. So test of understanding is very important. If you are doing this, definitely you will be on the safer side throughout your study for the later years and any time. Nobody can nobody can say this thing ki this particular researcher has done wrong, and they can raise the issue. They can take you to the court and all things. So to be in the safer side, do this all things. Issue of witness to consent procedure. But the witness who is signing in the procedures of informed consent. So that person should be impartial witness. It should neither related to the individuals who are there or nor to the researcher sites or the part of the study team. So the person who is impartial, that person can be considered as a witness. So that is the important thing to be considered. Can there be different types of the informed consent? Yes, there are the various kind of the informed consent. The traditional witness informed consent forms are there. Pictorial consent, where you are seeing like this individuals are illiterate, they cannot read and write, they cannot understand the language. In that way, you can develop the pictorial consent form where you can explain everything through the pictures and all, so they will understand well. So these are the different issues related with the informed consent. Importance of scientific review. As I told, there are different scientific reviews there. Their regulatory review is there. So what are the important things? Importance of scientific review, because every research study goes through the scientific review. It can be done through the different members of the scientific review committee. It explores the scientific novelty and rationality and the relevance. Whether the research proposal is scientific novelty is there, or it is simply repetition of any other studies, rationality is there or not, why they are doing this research, and whether it is relevant in the context where this study been done. So relevance related to nations, related to state or any regional area. So relevance is important. So justification for conducting the trial in the context of national priorities, whether it is the this particular issue is the national priority or not, scientific merits of the research project and feasibility, review of the toxicological studies, laboratory and the animal data, technology transfer and capacity building at the sites. So these all things, see, like this all points must be considered. So before going to the scientific review, we ourselves do our review by our own or by our peers, whether these all points are justifying our research or not. So by doing so by your own, we can very simply and very soon we can get clearance from the scientific review. Soundness of the study design. It is again very important thing. It includes all the inclusion, exclusion criteria, your sample size, if randomization is there, blinding procedures been followed or not, and the point assessment been how it is going to be done, and the study procedures, what are the study procedures and how and what you are considering for your study, following schedules and the pharmacy plan if there is any. So these all things, the soundness of study design is the key component of any research. So this need to be reviewed by scientific review committee. Scientifically well-planned research studies are more likely to correctly address the human subjects and ethical issue. It has been like by default, if you have the good scientifically planned study design, in that case, it has been directly or indirectly will address the human subjects and ethical issues very well. So this is all about the importance of scientific review. Then objective of the regulatory review. Another review is the regulatory review. So what are the objective of this regulatory review? Evaluate the preclinical trials data, है ना? So if regulatory review will evaluate the preclinical trials data, if you are doing any kind of a clinical trials, in that case, what clinical trials data are available before that, है ना? For that they will evaluate what are the knowledge been available and evidences are already available related to particular trials. So this will help to whether they should proceed with this particular research or not. It will help in that thing. Assess in country regulatory requirements for drug, vaccine, product import. So country regulatory requirements are there, especially if anything's been import from outside, either the drugs or vaccine or product. So in that case, they will review the things, how it will be done, who will be responsible, how it will come, or the cost will be involved, who will bearing the cost. Many things can be there. So these are the regarding the drug, vaccine, product import that's been done by the country regulatory requirements committee. Ensure the national requirements for special situations, genetically engineered product, stem cells research on the reproductive technology, organ transplantation, and etc. For that, we need to go through the international guidelines of guidelines, because if such kind of things are happening and we are saying ki genetically engineered products are there involved, stem cell research are there, reproductive technology. So you have to go through both the national guidelines as well the international guidelines both. Sample shipments, transfer of the raw data. This is the important aspect ki if such kind of the things there ki it is important and exports things are there regarding the raw data or any kind of the sample shipments from one place to other, there is the regulatory reviews is mandatory. Exchange of scientists and visitors. If there is the multi-centric, multi-country studies are there, in that case, the scientists and visitors may come and go. In that way, this regulatory review is important. Budget, if foreign fundings are coming for particular research, in that this review is important. And research in border or the high security area, if it is been planned, in that case also regulatory review is important. So that is the important aspect. क्यों नहीं जा रहा है? And a range of ethical issues that need to be addressed in the health research. So we have already almost all points we have discussed in the detail of the Indian guidelines. Competency of the researcher and research team need to be worked out in advance. Provision of protection of human rights, ethical issues, vulnerable populations, women and children need to be discussed and find out the ways. Measure for protecting the confidentiality and non-discriminatory practices. Justice should be followed up, and autonomy and confidentiality need to be considered in the ethical issue. Ethical issue related to the appropriateness of the informed consent and the studies specific educational material need to be seen prior to presenting into the towards the review board. Mechanism for reporting and management of the adverse event and various adverse events. Care and support for research participants. Standard of care, long-term care, post-trial access to care and product, reimbursement and compensation, continuing review of progress of the study. So if we look all these aspects well ahead in the time before presenting our proposal to the review committee, scientific committee, we can work it out on this aspect, and we can keep ourselves very much clear about all these aspects. So we will see, yes, whatever we are going to do, it is the ethical things being considered, and every guidelines been followed. So how to what these institutional ethical committees or institutions have the institution review board has the role, what they do. Does the study have real potential individual community benefit? So our institutional ethical committee or the institution, you people may be a part of those committees, so you should all know what is your role. So you have to look for the whether the study had the real potential individuals and the community is going to be benefited or not. So that need to be assessed, and are the rights of this such participants adequately protected? So that need to be discussed and clarified. Does the potential benefit for the overweigh the risk associated with the research participants? That need to be looked upon, because we have to, these are the principles of ethics, so this need to be considered. Will the participants and communities have access to study findings and benefits of the research? So that need to be clarified. What is the mechanism of provision of safety, care, and support to the research participant in case any risk arises, or if they need any kind of a care and support, what will be done? So everything should be discussed while you are sitting in the institutional ethical committee or the institutional ethical review board. So any of you are in the part of the board, you must consider this point while you are reviewing the research protocols for the researchers. So these are the important aspect. So what are the another important thing? What is the compositions of ethical institutional committee or the review board? The IC should consist of minimum of 7 members, and it can be up to 15 members. Committee can be formed at the institutional level. It should include the medical, non-medical, lay persons, ensuring the diverse perspective. It is important because you have because every aspect of the research can be discussed and understood at the different stakeholders. So this is very important कि medical, non-medical, lay person should be a part of the committee. A chairperson from outside of the institution with a medical background should lead the committee. Member secretary affiliated to the institute conducts the business, and at least one member should be from a legal background. But you can put the lawyers and all. If there will be any kind of the legal aspect will arise, so that person can help us to understand the legal aspect of that particular protocols. So lawyers should be the part of that. Judge or lawyer, whatever you is convenient, you can put it in the committee. There should be a non-governmental member representing social and ethical concerns. Some social person who are involved in the NGOs or social issues or social activists, they can be part of this thing. So they can look the research in from their perspective. So this issue can be sorted out. Include the community representative or the member of vulnerable population. If you are any tribal populations, you are taking the study, so from their local community, any members can be included from the committee. So the one member from the participants community should be there. Gender diversity among the members should be maintained. Like it is not like the male females ratio should be proportionately keep in the committee. The IC should meet regularly and a quorum 2 to 3 members essential to review the research proposal. So these are the some important points regarding the institutional ethical committee, how the composition should be there. So what is the responsibility of the committee? So ethical review, informed consent, risk assessment can be done, and beneficence and non-maleficence should be looked upon. है ना, जो हम अभी डिस्कस कर चुके हैं कि ethical review research proposal involving human participant, their data, biological material must be reviewed. Committee ensure that voluntary and informed consent procedures provide participants with the clear and understandable information about the research, risks, benefits, and their right to withdraw. Risk assessment assess the potential risk associated with the research participant, evaluate whether researchers have implemented appropriate safeguards to minimize the risk or not, beneficence and non-maleficence. Always possible benefits should be outweighed potential risks. So these are the important responsibility of the committee member to look upon these things. So process, roles and responsibility, conflict of interest need to be seen, review and manage the conflicts of interest among researchers, ensuring that financial and other interests are not compromised. As we have discussed about the diabetes study, now, how there was a conflict of interest. Conflict of interest is the person, the two researchers have involved the things in the study. They were more they were looking for their own benefits, na? The person who was schizophrenia, the lady who was interested in the schizophrenia cases, and she used that group as an opportunity, and so she was not least bothered about the diabetes thing, but she was more interested about the schizophrenia. And for the long years they did this study without the consent and without informing to the community. But later on, one educated person of that community understood this thing when he was part of the study, part of the meeting, and he found out that this is the study which was unethically done in their community. So this case was suited. So this is the conflict of interest. So this need to be understood that there should not be any conflict of interest. Confidentiality. Confidentiality of the research proposal and discussion should be maintained. Independent members and independent decision making, IC should operate independently and should not be influenced by the institution or researchers. So that is the important aspect. Monitoring of the study. The committee needs to meet periodically to review the progress of the study. Communication and decision making, consensus-based decision making often asks for amendments. Closure report. After the study is completed or published, a closure report to be filed. So these are all the roles and responsibility of the IC review. Decision making and the communication. After a full ethical approval. What is the full ethical approval? Indicates that the research protocol, informed consent process, and the other ethical consideration have been thoroughly reviewed and found to be compliant with the ethics guideline. So this is the full ethical approval can be given by the IC committee. Conditional approval, where ICs may grant conditional approval when there are certain minor issues or concerns that need to be addressed before full approval can be granted. So if there are any corrections or anything is gap in the proposal, so that can be conditional approval can be given by the ICs, and they can later on, after submission of those gaps and queries can be answered. In that case, after later on, the full ethical approval can be given. The expedited review, typically given for the research studies with minimal risk to participants. The review process is quicker than that for the full ethical approval. So this is the given studies with the jahan pe bilkul minimal risk, there is no risk at all involved. In that case, it is immediately can be given the approval, ethical approval, and this is called the expedited review. Then exemption from full review. Exempted from full ethical review if there are minimal risks to the participants or do not raise significant ethical concerns. So if the committee has found out that there is a minimal risk or no risk and no significant ethical concerns are involved in that, so they can exemption from the full review. Like all the aspects of the projects aspect or IC and ethical considerations, these all things. So they can be exempted. Amendment approval needed if changes to the research protocol, informed consent or other study materials are necessary after initial approval. So that is the amendment approval. Suspension or termination if serious ethical violations or issues arise during the course of the study. IECs have authority to suspend or terminate the study. So these are the how the decision making and communication from the side of institutional ethical review board. Ethics influences the health research and practice of the medicine. Why we are talking so much? Why we are discussing this? Why this topic has been selected for discussion among the researchers? Because it influences the health research and practice of the medicine. It's growing expectation about the accountability, questioning of the government responsibility and investigators' responsibility, growing public awareness due to the advocacy and the movement. So everyone has the responsibility, either government or the investigators or kind of the regulatory bodies. Everyone can be questioned about the this accountability going, because the public awareness is raising these days. Everyone is aware of such kind of things. So because of that, this is important thing, and it's really influenced the practice of medicine in the right way. Collective demand for health benefits, universal right to health care. Because research, why research been done? Research been done to give benefit to the community or the population. So health benefit, we are working, the research outcome is always for the health benefit. So, and we are talking of the universal health benefit. We are talking about the health for all. We are talking about the right to health care. So so if we are discussing of these things, so ethics in the research, it's help in the good practice outcome in the medicine. And the place for the self-responsibility, when it is being inculcated in the research, it is the place, it is the way we can think our own lifestyle, our own moral values. We can it gives shape to the researchers' moral value also. So researchers cannot be blamed in the future, or mishaps cannot be happen. So this helps to the researcher also, how we think ethically, how we practice ethically, how our moral values take shapes over the period of the time. So this is very beneficial to the researcher also. Need for including the bioethics in the medical curriculum being increasingly stressed. Now we need to teach this thing to our undergraduate, our postgraduate, because we know it is the important aspect. Whenever our students will do the research in the future, they must know about this ethics. In the ethics, they must know about the moral things related to the research. So this is the mandatory things by NMC also. National Medical Commission has made mandatory our student to do the basic BCBR course, that related basic course related to the research, where these students learn about all the aspects of the research, where ethics is also included. So this is the mandatory being done by the NMC. So there is the hope. What is the hope? Ethics in practice of public health and health research is being increasingly addressed, and definitely in the future we will have the very good medical science, where all the researcher will practice ethics in their research work. And there are the challenges also. Public expectation and demands will continue to increase, where the awareness has been increased. So in the future also, there will be the expectation for the community, and the people will definitely increase. The search for solution should be an ongoing process, and we are on the process as it started in the 1936, where the wrongly the research being done, and due to this 46 Nuremberg courts came, then Helsinki courts came, Balmores came, then ICMR courts came. So these all are the things when the solutions came for those particular problems. So in the future also, when we go ahead with this kind of the things, definitely the public health system, policy makers, researcher and program manager should show enough sensitivity, and they realize that there is a scope for further improvement. So it is the never-ending process. Every one of us are learning, we are applying, we are adopting the positive things in our behavior, in our practice, and we are following these principles of ethics. So this is all about from my side. If there will be any questions, and so we can discuss it. Thank you so much for the patience listening. So
Thank you, ma'am. If there are any questions, please type it in the chat box. Thank you for the wonderful session, ma'am. Ma'am has
Thank you,
thrown
Dr.
light on
Pinki.
importance of ethics in research, briefed on national ethical guidelines for biomedical and health research involving human participants. As we all know, research is a part and parcel of our life currently, especially in academics, in hospitals-based setups everywhere. So there should be some guidelines which we need to follow, and ethics plays a major role in our research. So ma'am has meticulously highlighted various steps involved, informed consent, etc., which is procedures involved in the ethics. And she has highlighted on all the forms how it is to be prepared and how the research has to be carried out, which is ethically appropriate. And I'm sure participants have been enlightened on this topic very well. I request everyone to fill the feedback form.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pinki.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your wonderful presentation. Thank you, ma'am. Can we wind up the session? Ma'am,
Yeah.
if we will get a questions, ma'am,
Yeah,
I'll
because,
just mail you, ma'am,
Yes.
because, yeah.
Sure.
Yes,
You can share
yes.
later on. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
as we come to the end of the webinar, I would like to thank once again Dr. Neelam and Anupama ma'am for accepting and enlightening us on ethical considerations in research. I thank Dr. Prakash Muminathan, President JISHA, and the Secretary of JISHA for their support and guidance. I would like to thank Dr. Pinki Singh, Editor JISHA, the entire editorial of JISHA, who has been a part of this webinar series, and the audience for active participation. For any questions, I request all of you to mail it to
Some assent things, na? Dr. Pinki.
Yes.
Someone
Yes,
has
ma'am.
asked about the assent form.
Yes, ma'am.
Assent form. Let me tell you. Yes, we had talked about the consent form. Consent form be taken from the participants who are 18 and more than 18 years of age, right? And the assent form is 7 to 15 years children, if they are there, are the participant as a participants of the study. So assent form can be filled for them. If children younger than 7 years, so only we can take the consent from parents. But for the it is clear ki consent form is purely for adult people 18 years and above. Assent form is the children are not adult enough to take their own decision. In that case, assent form taken 7 to 15 years of the children. So that is there. And less than 7 years, so it is the just purely the parents' consent for their study as their study participants.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Further question could be given to my mail, and I will forward it to ma'am and get back to the, yeah.
I put in the email ID in the message.
It's written
Thank
chair.
you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm put it in the message.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we'll wind up. Pinki.